All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I have one of the most incredible people in the world, Mr. Joey Phillips or Joseph Phillips. You have never met a guy that is smarter than this fella. And him and I are going to go much further left field than we normally do on our conversations and on our talks because this is Joey and I's casual conversation. And this is how we usually spend our day, is going into some deep stuff. So Joey, without further ado, would you give us a little bit of an introduction, who you are, where you've been, what your specialties are, and try to sum it up in under 300 minutes if you could.
Yeah, no problem. So I don't have a medical background. I'm all self-taught. I've invested probably, oh God, 100,000 hours at this point. Roughly 10, 15 years time span, researching complex medical journals on a daily basis. Used to be 16 hours a day, not so much anymore. But then I began to take on clients, and then that kind of morphed into several different things. My background originally was in bioacoustic biology, human bioacoustic biology. We would record people's voices, and we would plug it into a software program that basically would convert that musical tone coming from the laryngeal nerve bundle into a report that could be analyzed, and it would pop up different genes and pathways. And that's really what kickstarted my researching, because you really needed a PhD to kind of understand the reports that were coming through. So if I wanted to help not only my family, myself, and my clients, I needed to understand why those genes were coming up, what the purpose of the genes and pathways were that were coming up. And so that kind of morphed into me finding and stumbling upon several different databases that even furthered my education until eventually the student kind of became the teacher, and I outgrew the bioacoustic stuff because what I was doing, I felt at the time, was superior um, to those bioacoustic reports. And then eventually I started making my own formulations and stuff like that because I grew tired of, recommending 10, 15, 20 different supplements to my clients. And so I started making my own stuff. And then lo and behold, a friend of mine introduced me to the terahertz technology. This was with a previous company, and it was all research, all hands on deck from there. And so I kind of pivoted from DNA and different protein to protein interactions, and how basically maladies and different diseases were manifesting themselves by way of the expression of those genes. And I kind of pivoted and turned it into full-on research mode for terahertz because I had never heard of it before that. And it's been really it's been a real journey for me, basically uncovering this many different aspects of how the terahertz technology works in the body. And so we'll cover some of that, but that's basically the gist of it. I really love what I do. I'm a researcher at heart. I've been told by many PhDs that I blow their degrees out of the water. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back, but I just have a curious mind. I like to know how shit works, pretty much. Can I say that? Is that all right?
Yeah,
Um,
you know what? Today was casual. I told you tonight was going to be casual. This isn't, we're
so
not making any medical claims or anything else. Like, we are just going into all the research left and right. And so when Joey says he's got a curious mind, I speak, read, and write biblical Hebrew, some Aramaic, and some Greek to a decent extent. The Aramaic and Greek not as much, but I've got a Hebrew instructor that speaks, reads, and writes ancient Egyptian, Akkadian, Sumerian, Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, and a bunch of other languages. And Joey and I literally get on a call with him and we start dissecting Bible verses, talking about the different rocks, the different genes, the gematria, the Hebrew language in there.
oh,
So
should we talk about Jacob's ladder?
yeah, you know what? Let's go straight into Jacob's ladder. So let's not screw around, because before we get into Jacob's ladder, we probably should talk about piezoelectricity and piezoelectric genes. I think is
Yeah.
probably the first part that we've got to start with, because it's something that I
Okay.
talk about in a lot of the Zooms. So would you, in layman's terms, would you describe what's piezoelectricity? Then we're
Yeah.
going to move into piezoelectric genes, and then let's go nuts.
So basically, none of the technology that you use today would work if it wasn't for the piezoelectric aspect. And they use quartz a lot of times in the technologies because it's highly piezoelectric. And you have piezo genes in your body, piezo 1 and piezo 2. And they are in charge of, well, they're one aspect. They're basically an ion transmembrane receptor is the terminology. But what they do is pretty much convert mechanical forces, which would be our environment, which would be the electromagnetic spectrum, into biological signals internally. So it's like your sixth sense, so to speak, right? And so that's essentially what the piezoelectric response is. It's basically applied pressure that produces some sort of response in the body.
I'll jump in if it's all right. So essentially, this quartz crystal I've got here, through piezoelectricity, it means motion into electricity. If I take this quartz crystal and if I heat it up, heat is a measure of vibration inside of this crystal. As it gets warmer, its molecules start to vibrate. It will start to broadcast an electric field. Due to the shape of it, it will condense the energy off this point of take all the vibrations of all this quartz crystal and send up a shaped charge out the front of it. Those of you who don't know who Marcel Vogel is, I encourage you to go research him. So it also means if I take this quartz crystal and if I were to squeeze it, because the quartz crystal can't really deform, it will take that pressure of me squeezing it and it will shoot a beam of energy out the front of it. Just due to the shape of what this quartz crystal is, it sends out a particular shaped charge off the tip of it. So when we get into the human body, when I apply pressure to my hand, like I squeeze myself, the nerves don't directly respond to that pressure. There's piezoelectric components that sense there is pressure happening, and that pressure is then converted to an electrical signal that is then picked up by the nerves. So the nerves don't actually feel pressure. They're picking up the signal from the crystals in the body, telling the body that a pressure is happening. So anytime that you do exercise and you go out and you're putting strain on your muscles, that piezoelectric response is what's telling that muscle, that tendon, that ligament, that joint to grow stronger because of the electric signal due to the piezoelectric, the pressure being put on it. Also, this quartz crystal, not one single one of your phones, your stereos, your radios, your computers, literally nothing would work without this. Do you know why it's called an LCD display, liquid crystal display? You have crystals responding to an electrical signal that change shape, color, and according to voltage. My computer that's running right now, it runs a program like the old hippies would say, the quartz crystals are programmable. You have a quartz crystal in your computer and in your phone and in your TV and in your everything running a literal program to it. You literally have a quartz crystal in it. So without crystal, and you have them all over in your body. We'll get into this a little bit further. But in your pineal gland, you have literal calcite quartz crystals that will vibrate and send an electric signal. You have
I knew you were going to go there. I love it.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to all over your blood, all over your body. You have little quartz crystals flowing around inside your body that respond to pressure, that respond to sound. So just like my piano causing one of the crystals on a chandelier to vibrate, that's literally what's happening when you can feel the music. And they don't just pick up on sound, they pick up on literal streams of reality flowing over your body are picked up by these crystals in our peripheral nervous system. Have you ever felt that sixth sense? If you've ever heard of people saying like, you know, listen, I got this feeling that I just shouldn't get into that car. And later on, that car gets into an accident, everybody dies. And like, I just had this feeling I shouldn't. Your body can literally feel streams of reality flowing around it, tuning into different probabilities and probable futures. And we can get into like the field of noetics and human metacognition and the psychic capacities. We're going to put a pin in that for tonight. But this is what we're talking about when we're talking about piezo. And what this does is activates piezo genes. These genes in the body respond to all the little electrical signals being broadcast by all the little quartz and the calcium crystals, because your bones are calcium and silica. Your tendons and ligaments, your fascia are literally, some of them are protein crystals that the tensor and stressing.
Well, your collagen is piezoelectric. Your bones are piezoelectric. Many components of your extracellular matrix, the stuff that holds you together, is piezoelectric. Your DNA is piezoelectric. So you can just look up piezoelectric on a Wikipedia search and it will tell you all of that. And you also have your pineal gland, also responds to the piezoelectric field too. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, I was done. So you're perfect.
your whole body is literally an antenna. I found a recent study where the sweat glands are in shape of like this coil that is an antenna-like coil. And so your whole body is literally picking up on your surroundings, your environment. Your ear even has this spiral organ of Corti. They call it the Snell organ, so to speak, and it also picks up piezoelectric responses through that spiral organ and then transmits via sound to the brain, and then your brain processes that signal, and then so that's kind of like your sonar detector, if you will.
Ooh, let's get into the organ of Corti quick before we move into Jacob's ladder
Sure.
deal. The organ of Corti in the ear, shaped like a snail, it's a center of consciousness. Joey, can you expand on this a little bit? And then I'll come back to when we talk about biblically, the oil onycha was actually mislabeled of what we think is actually onycha. It's actually a seashell from India, but we'll come back to that. So, Joey, organ of Corti and the inner ear and consciousness.
So the thing about the spirals is they're found all throughout nature. The Fibonacci golden ratio, that kind of stuff. And maybe we'll talk about that too with clathrin and how that relates. The shape of the protein. Clathrin is this three-legged propeller. And if you lined up clathrin with the piezo gene and overlapped them, you wouldn't be really able to tell the difference. So the same exact geometry. And so basically math runs the universe, and geometry is a big part of that. So if certain things are like shaped the same way, it's like a lock. Think of it as like a lock and key mechanism. Well, your spiral organ of Corti, like I said before, picks up signals in your environment and it sends that signal into this small bone. It's the smallest bone in your body called the stapes or stapes. And that little tiny bone vibrates. And if you look up the etymology of the word stapes, it means stirrup. It's literally shaped like a stirrup, like you would use getting up on a horse, right? To step up. And so it is, like you got to think about your brain. It's highly ferromagnetic as well, like ferromagnetism. And so that plays a big part into the piezoelectric response and the spiral organ of Corti. But all these things come together and kind of work synergistically in the body, especially in the brain. And so this spiral organ of Corti is just absolutely mind-boggling. All the different genes and pathways, because frequency determines physiology. There's many sound frequency therapies out there, and there's a lot to that. And I used to work directly with that. But in terms of like the piezoelectric response in the body, that spiral organ of Corti sends that signal into the brain and it communicates with your pineal gland. And there was a recent study where they found crystals inside the pineal gland that interact with this piezoelectric field. And what was really fascinating to me was that the shape of the crystal, the geometry of the crystal forms what they call a rhombohedron, right? And I'm really big into etymology. I like to know what words mean. And so if you look at the breakdown of the word rhombohedron, and if you just looked up the word rhombi, it actually means a magician's circle. is the actual name of the what the word means. And so in a magician's circle in ancient times was used to ward off disease-carrying demons, is what they say. And so there's a lot of really deep stuff that you can get into with that. But I just love looking up the etymology of stuff. Even the word, the piezo gene, they have aliases that they put on the gene cards for the genes. And a lot of this stuff is interlaced and intertwined with like ancient mythologies and Greek and different stuff like that. But the alias for piezo is MIB, and it doesn't stand for Men in Black. The word MIB, if you look up the etymology of MIB, it means two things. It means interlaced with fat, right? Like marble. And isn't it interesting that dietary fatty acids fine tune the piezoelectric response, right? And so then you can kind of segue into like mitochondria as well and fatty acid metabolism, because fatty acids also upregulate how well your mitochondria function as well. But the other definition of MIB was calcium or limestone, in fact. And limestone is calcium carbonate. And it is what they used to line the ancient pyramid before the last pharaoh took it off of the pyramid. And so you have piezo gene with the alias MIB that means fat, and it also means limestone. And isn't it interesting that both of those things facilitate an electrical response? They say that the pyramid was this huge, power station, if you will. So all this stuff is really fascinating to me. But the terahertz wave really vibrates at those specific ranges in the body. And I can show you study after study after study after study that proves that case. And so maybe I've been talking for a minute. You take the floor.
No, you're doing great. That's exactly what I want. I want you going off on tangents. I told everybody tonight we're going to go off on tangents.
Yeah.
So the key thing is when we're looking at both the PEMF and terahertz waves, it's every molecule, every atom, every cell, and every organ and every ailment is basically being activated by both terahertz waves and PEMF. PEMF mimics the very heartbeat of the earth, of what the earth is putting out anyway. Terahertz waves are the electrical frequency waveband that your cells communicate with each other in. To begin with, take a look at a single-celled organism. It's got no brain. How does it know what to do? Let's go into microtubules and terahertz waves that it doesn't have a nervous system. It's sending terahertz waves within itself to guide all of its different functions to activate cell division into a new cell and sending a daughter and parent cell. All this information is being transmitted through terahertz waves, that your entire body is set up with all these piezoelectric genes that run around crystals, proteins, fats, and let's get into because now that we're talking about that and crystals, let's talk about water and crystallography and what water can turn into once we start applying terahertz waves. Joey, does this sound like a great next transition for us?
Oh yeah, this is kind of where I was wanting to go. I spoke a little bit last time we
ESPN,
talked.
buddy, ESPN together.
Yeah. So the first thing to understand is water is life. Water is the key to all existence. And it's an information carrier and it holds memory. And so most of this planet is water, just like you. Essentially, 90% of your brain is water. There's also water found inside the microtubules, and we'll kind of get to that in a minute. But there's a few quotes that I had prepared for this. One of them's from Masaru Emoto. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with him. He said, to understand water is to understand the cosmos, the marvels of nature, and life itself. Leonardo da Vinci said, water is the driving force of all nature. And Confucius said, a man of wisdom delights in water. And so the relationship between the terahertz frequency and water is a really special one. And excuse me. And in my opinion, it's how the terahertz frequency works, not only internally, but also through what they call like dark matter, for example. The stuff in the cosmos is also related. In fact, there was a video that I wanted to play. I don't know if you could share your screen or if I can share my screen real quick,
Yeah, I
but
can pop you over and make you host.
yeah, it's a really cool short little video about how they found water buckyballs in space, like a lot of them. And so let me share that with you guys real quick here. Let's see if I can pull it up here.
We discovered buckyballs in space. Fullerenes, or Buckminster fullerenes as they're called in full, are in fact an entire class of molecules. Buckyballs are these microscopic particles made of carbon that are arranged in a very specific pattern of pentagons and hexagons, which gives them the shape of the soccer ball. Buckyballs are like soccer balls in the precise way that the carbon atoms make up a pattern of pentagons and hexagons. In that sense, the chemical structure of these buckyballs is exactly the same as a soccer ball. We can detect buckyballs in space through their vibrational motions. These buckyballs, they oscillate or vibrate in very different ways. And each way they vibrate corresponds to a very specific color of infrared light that they emit or absorb. So it's the first detection of an entire new class of molecules that we know on Earth, but that we do.
So that is basically the gist of it. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Oh,
Okay.
Joey, add me as add a pin on here so I can be on the screen on with you. I got something to show us too, real quick.
Where do I do that?
Find my name under or my screen where I'm talking, click on it and click add pin.
Okay. Is that good?
Now make me host again real quick. I'll take care of it. I think you know how to do that, don't you?
There we go.
All right, am I host again?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, there we go. Add pin, perfect. All right, so if you saw the shape of the buckyball, if you've heard me talk about atomic water or pentagonal dodecahedrogonal water, as Joey was saying, we'll get to microtubules and consciousness. This, if you looked at the buckyball shape, you'll notice this is what atomic water forms for a shape: pentagonal, which is the pentagon you see there, and dodecahedrogonal, 12 of them clustered together. This is the shape that water, when terahertz wave energy hits it, when enough terahertz wave energy hits it, water has this insane affinity for terahertz waves. When enough of the right frequency of terahertz hits it, water goes from structured water, which is that hexagonal, if you've heard of people talking about Dr. Emoto, hexagonal water, fourth phase of water. If you've heard about that, there's another phase that goes after that, which is called atomic water, or dodecahedrogonal or pentagonal dodecahedrogonal water clusters, or simplified, atomic water. And this water is actually a room temperature superconductor and supercapacitor, meaning it can store huge quantities of energy that it converts from terahertz wave energy into a physical electrical energy that's not only used to make and shape and power this, but these engulf every protein before it folds to guide and power the protein folding. So your DNA, your RNA, we look into Alzheimer's, and every piece of collagen, your skin, we get into fascia, all of that protein requires this to be formed to guide and power its protein folding. So when Joey was showing the shapes about the buckyballs, some of the newer terahertz wave technology actually uses drops of water to create terahertz waves and broadcast them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to make terahertz waves, but some of the newer ones they found, drops of water given the right frequency and voltage will literally beam terahertz wave energy. So
Yeah.
Fascinating. So back to you, Joey. Sorry, I had to bring
can
that
you
back up.
pass the baton again? Let me
Yeah.
share my screen with you. I'm going to show you because it's a good segue into showing people Clathrin. because clathrin actually forms the buckyball as well. Let me see if I can pull this up. Okay, so clathrin is a protein in the body that forms a triskelion. Right, here's a little image of it. There's the triskelion. It's a 3-blade right here, but it also forms a buckyball, right? And so what does clathrin do? Let me see if I can pick it up here. Coated proteins like clathrin are used to build small vesicles in order to transport molecules within the cell. The endocytosis and exocytosis, which just means the taking in of matter or taking out of matter, it's like cargo, allows cells to communicate. So this word right here, communicate, is where the terahertz frequency comes in, because it allows your cells to communicate at a much more efficient way. But this clathrin protein also transfers nutrients, imports signaling receptors, mediates an immune response after sampling the extracellular world, and it cleans up tissue debris left by inflammation. And not only that, this pathway, this endocytic pathway, can be hijacked by viruses and pathogens to gain entry into the cell during infection, right? So pathogens are basically energy siphons, right? They suck your energy. And so, but what's really fascinating about this is that this forms a triskelion, right here. This protein forms a triskelion shape. This is one of the most ancient symbols known to man, right here, right? And so if you go down, it says it goes into this Archimedean spiral, right here. It forms this spiral. And then from Archimedean spiral, if you scroll down, it says also see golden spiral. So the clathrin protein from the triskelion not only forms this buckyball, but it also eventually helps to facilitate the golden spiral of life, right? That's seen all throughout nature. And so clathrin is a really, really special protein. And let me see if I can pop my screen up real quick and show you a side-by-side picture between piezo and where did that go? Piezo protein. Oh, there was an image. Give me 2 seconds here. I'll find it. It's not showing up. Anyways, if you put piezo protein side by side with clathrin, they're basically one and the same. The piezo is like the propeller, right? And so it is fascinating because when you start looking at patterns, like right now we're discussing patterns. These are the same patterns found all throughout nature. It's the same buckyball that forms through this golden ratio, right?
Oh yeah, keep that image up, Joey. Go back up just a sec. Right there.
Yeah.
Guys, look familiar? The pentagonal dodecahedrogonal water cluster.
So I'm gonna go through some of this stuff here and just briefly. I'm not gonna get really too far into it, but the terahertz frequency basically facilitates the continuous wave of terahertz, facilitates transmembrane transport, which is basically clathrin. This is clathrin. So this is an image of terahertz versus not terahertz.
Basically, what you're seeing is using terahertz waves, as we talked about, upregulating clathrin-mediated endocytosis, aka nutrient bioavailability. This is showing if you don't have terahertz waves, and if you do, left side no, right side yes, it shows how many more nutrients are uptaken by introducing the terahertz wave. So aka terahertz waves not only make every supplement you take work better, but every food that you're eating, the nutrition that you're getting out of it, you're getting more nutrition into the cell by adding terahertz waves.
Yeah, so basically it helps to not only move stuff in and out of the cell, helps with communication, but it also helps the water inside you. If terahertz frequency impacts the water molecule itself, and because you're primarily water, it's also going to do the same exact thing to the water molecules inside you and make it informed water with quantum coherence in a buckyball like pentagonal dodecahedral structure that facilitates this type of spiral, this golden ratio, right? And so water restructured as nanoclustered plays a key role in the proper folding of proteins even. And so there's a few images I was able to find right over this way here. Terahertz vibrational properties of water nanoclusters relevant to biology. So this is where I get a lot of this stuff. I just start cross-referencing terahertz waves in water and what it does. And these are the different geometric shapes that it kind of forms. But they have studied, if you look at even water buckyball and terahertz vibration here, water, the cradle of life via its coherent quantum frequencies. There are so many studies, but this one right here, it's like it blew. I spent like 2 weeks on this study because it blew my mind. How the terahertz frequency interacts with dark matter. There's just all kinds of nuggets. Hydrated clathrate. They call them. They call these water buckyballs water clathrates because the clathrin itself is the geometry of the clathrate is similar to the C60 Buckminster fullerene. But in here it talks about how all this stuff works, how that when you apply a terahertz frequency, it'll vibrate what they call the hydrogen shell, the hydration shell. There's another study, dance of water with protein. Disco becomes minute. This stuff explains how this all works. Here's another study, the terahertz dance of protein with water. Another study, terahertz dance of proteins and sugars with water. And so if you look at this image right here, let me see if I can expand that out a little bit. This is like the hydration shell that surrounds the protein right here. And so they found that the water molecule, this hydration shell, actually will vibrate and move milliseconds before the protein decides what it wants to do. And so what does that mean in layman's terms? It means water, in the frequency of the water, right? The coherence or decoherence, right? If your cells are not coherent, that means the water around your proteins are not coherent. That means the protein's not going to fold correctly, right? And so proteins are like the key to life. You have DNA, RNA, proteins, and then amino acids, and that's kind of how it plays out. The proteins are really where it's at. The protein-to-protein interactions that take place, the cell-to-cell signaling, it's called, really is the messenger of transmitting whatever the DNA and RNA are basically programmed to do, right? But if you can manipulate the water molecule surrounding the protein, because they showed that this hydration shell moves milliseconds before the protein folds, you can control the cell, you can control the protein, right? And not only that, these hydration shells are not just limited to proteins, they literally surround your DNA, right? So if you go back to the dance of the water molecules with the sugars, where'd it go here? There we go. Terahertz dance of proteins and sugars. Your DNA is held together through sugars. Ribose is a big one in that aspect. But the point of all this is that if you can control the water molecule, you can control basically every aspect of your biology is kind of how it plays out, because they will where's this let me see if I can, there it is right here, hydrogen bonds, right? There's the water molecule, there's the hydrogen bonds, H2O, there's 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. If you can control the hydrogen bond between the water molecules themselves, you can control everything, because the hydrogen bonds are really where this road kind of leads to. And so there's like every second to third biochemical reaction involves a hydrogen bond. Hydrogen bonds hold the DNA together right here. Without hydrogen bonds, your DNA would unwind and you would not be you. So the hydrogen bonds are extremely, extremely important. And so when you apply either a pulse electromagnetic field, but especially the terahertz frequency wave, this is why they call it God's waveband, frequency of life, because of it, the fact that it interacts with the hydrogen bonds. And I actually found a study the other night. I was up to like 1:30 in the morning researching, because once I get on a hunt, I don't give up till I find my answer. But they found that the terahertz frequency applied to the water facilitates more surface area for a hydrogen bond to basically connect with other ionic bonds, for example. So what that means is that if you can increase the bonding angle and can increase the surface area of the hydrogen bond, you can how should I say this? You can make everything else in the body run more smoothly, really. But I hope that kind of made sense to everybody. It's really fascinating, this stuff. When you start researching what the Terahertz frequency does to water, this is where the rubber meets the road. And its ability to be able to facilitate cell-to-cell communication and clathrin-mediated endocytosis. This is what runs the universe, what runs the cosmos. The spiral nature of the universe. It is no different inside even the microtubules. You have this delicate spin that takes place inside the microtubules. It's like a funnel system, right? When you're draining the bathtub, you can kind of see how it kind of spirals down. That's what takes place inside a microtubule even. And so I'm going to pass it off to you to talk about more of the atomic water in the microtubules and what the microtubules, why they're so important to like consciousness and things like that. And then after you're done, I'm going to take it back and I'm going to talk about your cellular antennas called your primary silica, or your primary cilium, they're called, your cilia, your cellular antenna. So go ahead, dude.
All right, want to stop screen share for just a sec?
Yes, let me give the 4 black back to you.
No, you just dropped the screen share is good enough.
Okay, boom.
All right, so we're gonna, before I move on, we're gonna say, people are saying, well, listen, how is it people are getting better? We can sit here with all the studies with PEMF, with all the terahertz, studies left and right on specific cellular functions or specific diseases, but people say, how am I getting better? Because you have increased quantum coherence, especially amongst all of the water in your body. That's what's really there's where the rubber meets the road. We can talk about all the secondary cell functions that come later, but what's important, what this device is doing is working at that atomic level of water, and it's reshaping all of it so that your entire body, which is run on water, becomes more coherent, more organized, has more surface area, and has more energy pumped into it. So people say, well, how could this little device be doing all this? Be like, but Joey just talked about of the way that all of this, especially terahertz waves, interact with water to charge it and increase this quantum coherence, increase the golden spiral. There is a really good way that I like to say, if I were to take if I wanted to say Jesus in mathematics, I would say golden ratio, unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness. 1618, expansion by golden ratio, or unconditional forgiveness, compression through golden ratio. That would be the best way to put this. So that's what this device is doing, is increasing 1618.618 phi, or the golden ratio. It's introducing more of that into the body. So moving into Joey's fun topic of microtubules, I love getting into this stuff. This is my cup of tea too. So Joey introduced me to this stuff way back in the day. We were making a supplement, I think, called Pegasus, which it's still on the shelf. We'll just put a pin in that for right now. But one of the things we got into I love Carl Sagan. he loves to say that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a great disservice to both. And so we can't talk about our physical bodies without talking about consciousness and the soul as well. So my question to you becomes, and I talk about this a lot in the calls, but my question to you becomes, how does you know how to get into your body? How does the TV show known as You know to get into your actual body? How does the soul know which body to inhabit? That becomes a question, and the great answer comes through microtubules. If you take a look at, kind of back in the day, for those of us that are a little older, you young bucks on the call, you won't remember this, but you go out on top of on top of people's houses, you'd see the TV antenna up there, right? Shaped like the little arrows, and that would allow you to tune into the different radio stations. That's what your microtubules are in your body. They're these little tube structures that are hollow that get filled with literally this atomic water inside these. When these proteins stack together, they actually increase in electrical conductivity. So the more that you get these proteins, these tubulins that make up the microtubules, the greater their conductivity becomes when they act as a single large unit instead of one protein. Well, water, and through God's miraculous design, actually tunes it. It fills these little tubes. So if we would take this like this, and there we go. If we took it this way, you can't really see it, but if I were to stack these end, like a bunch of little marbles on a string like this water, like Joey was saying, in these microtubules, will act like when you pull the bathtub, there's an energetic vortex that starts running through it, that starts moving into quantum computing, quantum biology. It's moving it literally through quantum tunneling. It will suck electrons through the walls of the protein, where electrons will literally manifest out of thin air, teleport through the protein walls, appear inside these microtubules, and turn into an electric current. These microtubules are what tune into the TV show known as You. And Joey brought up the coolest study of the gene STNM1, the fear gene, that when fear as an emotion is induced in human body, it releases a protein that causes microtubule destabilization. Fear is the lowest frequency that there is. It's the lowest vibration. Even if you're angry, you can do something with angry. If you're jealous, if you're resentful, if you're hateful, you can still do something with that energy. Fear, you can't do anything with. And so these microtubules are the very foundation of our consciousness. When we go into anesthesiology, what is anesthesiology? If we're going to put you under for a surgery or an operation, what is it? They literally give you drugs that block microtubules. And what does that do?
And you go unconscious. Yeah.
You go unconscious because
You're
you
unconscious.
Microtubules. They're the very center of consciousness, that they process everything before your nervous system and before your fascia picks up and does anything. Your microtubules work not only as storage units, but also as computers. Oh my gosh, let me see if I can find that quartz crystal quick.
And also, real quick, viruses and pathogens and all these kind of things, they can also hijack what's called your microtubule organization center, right? And so that's also important to note as well, because again, pathogens are essentially energy siphons, and that's how they do it. They will hijack clathrin, they will hijack the microtubule organization center, and all these kind of things. And so real quick, when you're talking about a cellular antenna, that's your cilia, they call them. And so they're like little tiny hairs on the inside of you that pick up frequency. They're much similar to like the piezo genes, how they convert mechanical signals into biological signals. The inside of the cilia are microtubules that pop up, and this goes hand in hand with picking up what kind of frequency you're putting out and what kind of frequency are you picking up, really. And so I didn't mean to steal the floor from you.
No, it was perfect. I had to run grab something. So when we look at a virus body, we actually want to look at that secondary. Just like our body, we're souls and we have a body. It's not that I am a body and I have a soul. I am a soul, I have a body. Viruses are the same way, that they're a lot like a computer virus into reality. They're a destructive, parasitic, energy siphoning program that's unresolved. It doesn't follow 1618.618. So viruses will actually hijack your microtubules in an energetic fashion to insert themselves into the TV show known as you by hijacking your antenna that funnels your consciousness.
Yeah,
So,
real quick, if I can
go ahead. Yeah,
if you looked at an image of not all viruses, but some viruses, and a nanobot and put them side by side, you literally can't tell the difference.
No.
And so it is insane. So I look at things like, geometry, etymology, and these are the things that govern everything. And so if you can look at patterns, if you can unlock a pattern in nature, you can discover a whole bunch of stuff that is really kept secret from the general public. Really, it is.
Yep. So, and like to look in terms of viral transmission, don't look at it so much of a physical virus being transmitted from person to person. Look at it more as an energetic signature that's being broadcast microtubule to microtubule. And so to go bring microtubules back to consciousness, I've got another crystal I popped up. It's called a pineapple quartz. And if you pull it up, you can see like all the little teeny crystals they're all little mini quartz crystals, you know, right here, sparkling on the outside of it. Think of these as your microtubules, and this is your nervous system. So before your nervous system and your brain actually processes anything, there's all these little teeny crystals on the outside. Like imagine that as your microtubules. They process exponentially more information than your nervous system, your unconscious. I mean, not even your conscious. Your conscious mind processes nearly nothing. Your unconscious mind processes almost 99% of what's going on in your day-to-day life is in this subconscious. The little teeny 1% you got up in your conscious mind, it ain't squat, but your subconscious and your unconscious, it's got nothing compared to what your microtubules are doing. So your microtubules are pre-processing everything, and here's the difference. My nervous system, just like we're going to go back to my computer that I've got, our nervous system works as on or off. It's my nerve either fires or it doesn't. There is no in between. In the quantum realm that these microtubules process in, they work like quantum computers, where they process not just in on and off, they process in on, off, both, and neither. So the amount of processing that these microtubules can do, it makes them trillions of times smarter than your conscious waking brain is. These microtubules, we call this God's intelligence, for lack of a better way to put it, or the soul's intelligence. Microtubules process trillions of times more information than your actual brain does. Nassim Haramein, great guy. I met him. I went out to a theoretical physics conference in the Redwood Forest. Oh, that was cool. And then I went to the pyramids and spent the night in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Also amazing. But as he says, trying to look for consciousness inside our brain is like trying to look for the announcer inside of a radio. You could bang the radio up, but there's no announcer in there. It's a receiver for it. And it's the same thing as your brain. The announcer's not in there. As Nikola Tesla says, be like, my brain is only a receiver. Your consciousness is non-local. You just happen to have this little point in space and time that's lucky enough to have the TV show known as you being broadcast to it. So there's so much more that's happening. And when we get into the buckyballs, there's this really cool thing called, in terms of dark matter, it's called quantum foam. All of the reality that we have around us is basically a foam of probability. If we take a look at the studies of looking at physical matter itself, number one, it's not solid. It's made up of waves. Number two, it's all probable. Number three, it's all in nearly almost completely empty space. Number four, reality and matter blink in and out of existence trillions of times a second. Do you know what trillions of times is if we turn that in terms of waves? Terahertz means trillions of times. So we have, in terms of orchestrated objective reduction theory, if you know anything about the double slit theory, that and the field of noetics, basically the observer effect. Your soul is observing your body, which is collapsing your body from probability into actuality. So why would they say don't use? I'm gonna just like bear with me here. It's a lot of things to string together. But when we say don't use your phone while you're on the device, it's not because it's really that big a deal. It's not like it's actually going to hurt you or your phone's going to die. It's that you might get a little bit less benefits. But here's the thing: these terahertz waves help to collapse probability into actuality, actual physical matter, because this quantum foam of all the probability of myself from health to disease is collapsing in and out of reality trillions of times a second. But with my focused attention, this is where we get into basically prayer. With my focused attention, I can collapse the reality from disease to health. With the use of this device, if while you're on it, you're focusing on the future that you want, especially in terms of your body, these terahertz waves help to collapse that probability into actuality, meaning you're literally manifesting from the quantum foam a new body out of it, using terahertz waves as a tool to collapse an entirely new reality from where you were, a whole new timeline. And so it's working through microtubules, it's working through just literally the observer effect and the collapse of quantum foam into our actual reality. And you'll have to, if you haven't heard of the double slit experiment, and orchestrated objective reduction theory, and then there's the field of noetics, which is the ability for focused human attention to collapse quantum waveform functions. So this is actually like the science of, you get into the CIA and the field of the science of psychic. That's a whole new can of worms. We gotta go. Boop. We're gonna put that over. The Menosteric Goats is basically a movie mocking the entire field of noetics. So reading a book, it's just you're basically collapsing the probability, the reality of reading your book. So I mean, it's not like it's a bad thing, but if you really, while using the device, set your focused intention basically as a doing prayer while using it, this is like digital prayer enhancement. It's going to be like digital prayer whether you're focusing or not. But if you use it as digital prayer enhancement, this is the whole nother can of worms that we get to move to a whole nother level. So,
Yeah.
Joey, I think I hit I think I hit the.
It's like seek and ye shall find, knock and I shall answer. So a man thinketh, so he becomes. Know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and the gods. But there's so many different quotes that you can play off of that. I want to share my screen with you one more time.
Yeah, do it.
We wrap this up, because I'm going to tie this in together with the microtubules, and I'm going to just go back and show you the image of the rhombohedron crystal. So that's the crystal they found in the pineal gland. That's the shape of it. And so if we go back this way, they call it brain sand. It's piezoelectric. And they found evidence of two different types of calcium carbonate and calcium oxalates.
Right? Oh, gotta plug in. You know how they talk about calcified pineal gland?
Yeah.
Add calcium right here. Fluoride coming in, taking calcium carbonate, oxalate, making calcium oxalate. So
oxalates are like shards of glass in the body. They'll cut open even the inner lining of the blood vessel. And then you have leaky blood vessel, and cholesterol comes to the scene to patch it up. And then the doctors blame your issue on cholesterol when it's really the calcium oxalates cutting you open from the inside. But these pineal crystals are in the rhombohedron shape. And if you literally look up the word rhombi, it's from the French word, and it literally means a magician's circle. And that's what a magician's circle might look like right here. And it's believed that it will contain energy and form a sacred space of protection against evil. And it was used to counter disease-carrying demons. And so playing into that, you asked me to talk about the organ of Corti. Well, they also found calcium or calcite inside of the organ of Corti in the inner ear. And it is related to also calcium carbonate. These are little biocrystals that literally convert mechanical forces into biological signals. And you have these little tiny little hairs inside of the spiral organ of Corti that pick up these signals, right? And so that's what a spiral organ of Corti kind of looks like. And fishes, even there's all kinds of fossils that have the same exact geometry, and they're also piezoelectric, right? So I found all this stuff fascinating. But when you come down here, we talk about the clathrin, right? How it forms the triskelion. Well, inside your body, you have what's called a Marvel domain, right? I didn't make this up. Whoever's naming these genes knows a thing or two, going back thousands and thousands of years. And let me just say this. So I was researching different genes and pathways. I came across this gene called Aurea. In Greek mythology, the Aurea are the gatekeepers of heaven. It literally says that in the gene cards. So I was like, what the hell? So then I started looking, well, who's naming these genes? And first of all, it's the Weizmann Institute of Science that puts the gene cards together. It's a database, literally, of all the a conglomeration of like 70 different databases all into one. And within these gene cards, they will name the genes. And sometimes they'll name the genes after mythologies and these strange kind of etymologies that have nothing to do with the actual function of the gene. So it really stands out as like this red flag. And so they're like little encoded hidden messages in the genes that tell the story of not only our creation, but the function of the universe. Well, inside the body, you have the Marvel domain, they call it. And within this Marvel domain, you have a gene, it's called the tricellulin, which is similar to the triskelion. It is literally shaped the same exact geometry as the triskelion. And it sits in between your tight gap junction proteins, where the rubber meets the road, where your extracellular matrix, where your tissue kind of joins together. They're called gap junction proteins. And that what facilitates the signal to be able to hold everything together or transmit a signal are these little tricelliomes right here. This word right here, that's the name of the gene. And in the Hollywood, because I like looking at that stuff too, the Marvel universe, the intelligence agency SHIELD uses the triskelion as their headquarters. Okay. The U.S. Department of Transportation also uses the triskelion as its logo because it facilitates all energy transfer, the transportation of all energy. Okay. Otherwise, the Department of Transportation would be using it as their flipping logo. Okay. But I wanted to come down here and tie this all in. First of all, they have drugs on the market that antagonize the piezo genes. One of them is called Jedi, and the other one's called Yoda. Don't believe me? Look it up. It's flipping crazy. But that's the calcium carbonate that would have lined the pyramid right here, right? From the piezo gene, meaning MIB, calcium carbonate, like I was talking about earlier. Here's the image I was trying to find earlier on clathrin versus piezo. They're both literally propellers of energy. They literally call the piezo gene the propeller. Right here, it looks like a propeller, if you could see it. But here's where clathrin comes into play. That's what the clathrin looks like. And it forms the buckyball. And what is it doing? It's climbing across the microtubule. Right here. This is how your body works, you guys. And so there would be no facilitation of anything in the body without these processes. And so why is the terahertz frequency so cool? Because it interacts with electrical fields. And we know that these genes and these proteins also interact with electrical fields. And so we can really look at this with a fine-tooth comb, a microscope, and say, okay, if that's connected to this, this is connected to that. They're finding water buckyballs out in space. We have buckyballs inside of us. Water facilitates all transfer of energy. The terahertz can manipulate the water molecule around a protein and decide how it folds. All this stuff kind of ties in together with what we've been discussing throughout this whole Zoom meeting. It is that the terahertz frequency is the wave of life, God's wave band. Water is life. The terahertz frequency can manipulate the hydrogen bonds of the water molecule And without hydrogen bonds, your DNA would not be held together even. So I'm just going to leave you all with that to kind of chew on. It all ties in together. I just want to kind of show you. I know we've been talking about different things, but all these systems in your body work together to help one another. Many of them have the same exact geometry. A lot of them do similar functions. They all work on energy transfer. They all work through this spiral, that is found all throughout nature. They even found that as soon as you're born, what facilitates the formation of your brain, even. You can go back in the Facebook group. I posted about this earlier. They found spirals in the brain. What do the spirals do? They facilitate the contours that form that are lifted up off the brain. You know, all those little the contours that form the geometry on the outer surface of the brain right here that create more surface area to be able to pick up more frequency. They found that when a child is born and they don't form these contours on their brain, they cannot talk, they cannot communicate. They're more like autistic type of individuals. And so we know that the spiral, and I'll just say this too, even the spark of life, it was Northwestern University did a study a while back, and they recorded for like 5 or 10 years what happens when the sperm hits the egg. And there's this like huge zinc spark that takes place. And then this calcium wave efflux takes place. And then that kickstarts what they call RHO GT pace signaling, rock signaling. But the rock signaling, they recorded even the waves that take place from the rock signaling, it's called. They're the same exact geometry as the spiral of the triskelion. So you wouldn't even be here today. And they found the growth of an organism rides in on a pattern of waves. That's literally the study from MIT. And they recorded it, and it looks like a triskelion spiral taking place. And so it's just, there's so many different things I could show you guys, but I don't want to be here all night. Just know that the spirals, your ion channels, the piezoelectric response, everything about your biology, you're basically one big antenna. You have cilia that are the cellular antennas, and you have spiral organ of Corti that have cilia inside them that pick up the signals. They're all spirals. Everything is spirals. And so these spirals interact with microtubules, and they also form the C60 fullerenes. And so between those three separate things, you could literally look at one of those three things and go down a rabbit hole that would keep you busy for the next 10 years. Believe me. It's like I'm like a human AI. Like I could pick up information and recognize patterns like nobody's business. I use AI a lot to like make posts and stuff like that. And I have to train my AI because it doesn't give me the answers I want, even when I know what the answer is. And so I have to ask it and frame it in a certain way to be able to get the response that I want, because even the flipping AI isn't even where I'm at.
I think a simple way to say it is the microtubule is strong in you.
Yeah, it's the force. Like I said earlier, they have drugs on the market called Jedi and Yoda. What are we talking about? Star Wars here? The force is strong with you. This is the piezo response. It is the force. This is what it is. It's just crazy, you guys. All the
It's
stuff
that Pegasus.
on Earth. Yeah. What else I got in this file? Oh, there's your bagpipe, Gene. Literally called the bagpipe. Why do they call it bagpipe? Because it vibrates at 475 hertz, which is called light music. There's only one instrument on the planet that can play that, and that is the bagpipe, 475 hertz. And they have an image. Oh, it's a it's a cathedral in Europe, and it's got the angel playing the bagpipe, right? And it's like, oh, that's what happens when we die. You know, we said we go to heaven and we worship. You know, that's what they say. Um, I'm just like over here, like, okay, what frequency are we worshiping to? You know what I mean? So there's so much cool stuff. There's an ancient code written into the genes. And like I was telling you earlier, the people that are naming the genes is the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. And Weizmann was the first president of Israel. And if you look at the history, he was funded. He wouldn't even have been president had he not been funded, right? These are the money changers of the earth. He wouldn't have been president had it not been for the ancient Rothschild family of the East. Those are the people that are inputting information into the gene cards. And that family goes all the way back. I tracked their lineage to the ancient Mesopotamia. The tablets, man.
Nice. All right, Mr. Joey, we're going to put a pause in this right now. We're at our 1 hour mark. If you guys want to look up Mr. Joey Phillips, following him, do me a favor, Joey, kill your screen share for just a sec, if you would.
Oops, sorry, brother.
Don't worry about it. So if you guys want to, you can find Joey Phillips on Facebook. He is fascinating to follow. This guy's great. We're going to have to come back on. And I think next time Joey and I are going to have to actually structure this instead of saying, we're just going to wing it off the top of our head just for fun. So, yeah, I think Joey, if you guys ask nice, maybe we'll put together a class. But to spin it all back around, if you're wondering why the device works, it's just putting the light and the energy and that spiral and the coherence back into you by affecting all of the water. So we can sit here and talk all about, well, give me this study, that, give me this study, that, you know, those back and forth. It's just these devices at a base level, it's what they're doing is at the very core foundation of our life, because our blood is made of water. So we can help get the blood and the water molecules smaller so they flow smoother. It's just, this makes it so much easier to understand once we made it really complex and we just.
And what happens when the piezo genes aren't functioning correctly? Your inner lining of your blood vessels get dehydrated. Literally. If you look at the diseases associated with the piezo genes, that's one of them is dehydration of the blood.
Okay. Well, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to say this Sunday night, we've got another opportunity call coming up on this Sunday. So everybody give Joey a giant thanks. You can go find him. The guy's a lot of fun to follow. And we're going to have to come back again in another little bit. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know that it was really left field. I told you that's where we were going this week, but it was fun and it was a little alternative. And we brought a lot of fun science to the table, even some esoteric. We brought some spirituality and we merged it all together at the end. So have a great night, you guys. I'll see you on Sunday if you're here for an opportunity call. And we'll take questions on another time because Joey and I both have to go get some things done. So I hope you guys had fun. I really appreciate you being here.